me see if Apple will give me the exact time. We said go ahead and start. We're going to go ahead and get started. It is 6:30. Good evening. Welcome. Thank you for being here. The League of Women Voters and also the Columbia Public Library, they are welcoming you to tonight's hybrid candidate forum. My name is David Lyle. I'm happy and very honored to be the moderator of this event tonight. It is going to be broadcast on KFRU and KOPN, the radio stations. We are Zooming the evening's activities also. So those who are watching on Zoom have a chance to participate through questions that they would send, and then Barbara would send them to me. Also, those of you who are in the room here at the library, you found index cards on your seats, and if you need pens or pencils, I suppose we'll be happy. They're back at the back table. We're happy to provide those for you. So if you have questions throughout the evening, write them on that index card and then hold up the question, and somebody from the league or somebody else will bring them up to the front so that we can go through the questions that way. Also want to point out that there are some handouts. I hope you'll get one of these because these are from the League of Women Voters here in Boone County and Columbia. And they are pretty good guides for what we have before us during the November 8th election. So
Ballot.
I'm sorry?
Ballot issues.
Ballot issues, not the individual races, because the league won't be coming.
That's voter guide.
Voter guide.
Yeah, we do have that.
Let me tell you where to find that on the website also. Thank you for that. It would be lwbcbc.org, League of Women Voters, Columbia, Boone County, the initials.org. So that material is available there. This is information not only about the ballot issues, also though about what you'll need in order to vote this year because the law has changed. We're going to focus on the general election contested races for Boone County offices. The races are for Boone County Presiding Commissioner, Boone County Recorder of Deeds, Boone County Treasurer, and Boone County Auditor. We're going to have candidate forums a week from tonight, and that'll be for the general election contested races, which would be state representatives in districts 44, 47, and 50. And then also a week from tonight, we'll have information about the ballot issues and presentation on that. It'll be very informative. We thank you for being here tonight and hope that you would be back for next week. We're going to start with the candidates for Boone County Presiding Commissioner. I like the way that the league summarizes what the different posts and jobs and offices do. So let me describe that. Boone County Commissioner, an elected or commission is an elected 3-member governing body with a District 1, which would be Southern Commissioner, a District 2, Northern Commissioner, and then a Presiding Commissioner. The commission establishes county policy. It approves and adopts the annual budget for all county operations. It approves actual expenditures for each department, supervises the operations of public works, planning and zoning, building codes, human resources, purchasing, information technology, and facilities and grounds maintenance. It ensures countywide compliance with numerous statutory requirements and acts as liaison with county boards, commissions, and other governmental entities. Now, the Republican candidate for presiding commissioner is Connie Leopard. The Democratic candidate is Kip Kendrick. We're going to start with each candidate having an opportunity to spend 2 minutes introducing themselves to us. And then after that, we'll have questions from the League of Women Voters. They've provided 2 or 3 questions for each of our candidates and each of our offices that are going to be represented tonight. And then we'll have questions available from you here in the audience or from those who are listening and watching us through the chat section of Zoom. For our in-person audience, again, we remind you to use the index cards for your questions. We'll have a minute to answer each question. And then at the end of our time, about a half an hour with our presiding commission candidates, then we will give them a 1-minute closing statement. Candidates give their opening statement in ballot order, and then we'll reverse that for the closing statements. Connie Leopard, good evening. You're here. We're glad to see you, and we'd like to hear your opening remarks for up to 2 minutes.
I thank you so much for inviting us here this evening to the League of Women Voters and the library. I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself. I'm a woman in construction, nationally recognized for my service to as president of the National Association of Women in Construction, where my focus was amplifying the voice of women in construction, as well as the benefits of having a diverse workforce within the construction industry. I'm a small business owner of 40+ years here in Boone County, where I was blessed to have received the 2016 Columbia Daily Tribune Businesswoman of the Year Award for the community service and the business success that I've enjoyed. I'm a woman that is with extensive leadership experience, executive leadership experience, where I have created, organized, and managed complex business organizations, both in the for-profit and nonprofit world. All of those skill sets will serve you well in the presiding commissioner position. I currently serve since 2019 on the Boone County Children's Services Board, where I'm serving you very well there. I also serving the last 2 years as a national parliamentarian for the National Association of Women in Construction, where I received more than 10 years of experience and training in the legal and fiduciary responsibilities for boards and commissions, as well as strategic planning and organizational management. My construction industry experience will bring great skill sets to infrastructure issues, planning and zoning, building codes. That's in my industry, in my wheelhouse every day. I thank you so much for asking us to be here this evening, and I look forward to your questions.
Connie Leopard, thank you. Kip Kendrick, good to have you here also, and we'd like to hear your opening comments.
Great. Can you hear me? Yeah. All right, very good. Thanks to the League of Women Voters for putting this on. It's always a great event. It's always a great forum and opportunity to for the community to be able to ask us questions and for us to be able to explain where we stand on issues. I'm Kip Kendrick. I've been, I was born in Northeast Missouri, small town Monroe City. I've been in Columbia in Boone County for about 20 years now. I came here for educational and economic opportunities like so many of you, and I fell in love with it and stayed. Boone County is a wonderful place. I've been in service here for a number of years, and that's public service has kind of been a calling for me my entire life. Shortly after moving here, I became neighborhood association president of Benton Stevens, where I served for neighborhood president for 7 years, 4 by choice. They wouldn't let me go for the remainder until I decided to run for state house and move on from that position. I served in the Missouri House of Representatives from 2015 through 2020. Worked the last 2 years over in the Missouri Senate as the chief of staff. During my time in the House, my primary focus was on the budget committee. I was a superminority member, and but that didn't hinder me or stop me from trying to make progress and represent Boone County well. 4 of my 5 years in the House, 4 of my 5 years on budget committee, I was the ranking minority member, and not because I was the senior member on the committee amongst Democrats, but because I had taken the time to learn the budget inside and out, and also to build respect and trust with members of the Republican Party. That later put me in a position where the Republican governor appointed me to the Missouri CARES Act Task Force, and I was there to represent the House on that committee. Partly, I think that he knew that I wasn't a partisan hack, that I was certainly going to put partisan differences aside in order to do what's best for the state of Missouri and spending that $2.4 billion that came down from the federal government. So I look forward to the conversation. Thanks for having us.
All right, thank you, Kip Kendrick. We're going to do the questions from the League of Women Voters now. They have 3 that they have submitted for us to ask the candidates. And we'll start with Connie Leopard on this one. What do you see as the biggest challenge for Boone County, and how will you fix that problem?
Right now, the biggest challenge I believe that's happening within Boone County is our workforce. It's developed. We are in the 911 center, for instance. We are more than 20 folks down in that department alone. Part of it, I believe, is administrative issues. As a small business owner, as a experienced business owner with workforce development as well as human resources experience, it's something that I will be tackling on day one because it's affecting our public safety. I have personal experience with my mother-in-law calling 911 with a medical emergency and being put on hold. That's not the kind of service that we need to be delivering to the citizens of the county. And on day one, I will be working on that issue.
All right, thank you. And Kip Kendrick, what do you see as the biggest challenge for Boone County and how will you fix that problem?
Well, I think Connie mentioned it. I mean, this is an issue. Workforce issue is a problem. It is impacting Boone County's ability to provide basic government functions, and that's truly an issue. Over the last several years, we've seen private sector employers receive multiple raises. We've also seen public sector employees receive multiple raises, whether it be City of Columbia or the state of Missouri. Boone County employees have not seen that raise across the board. Some individuals have, some departments have seen raises, but we have to figure out how we can retain the current staff that's there through wage increases, through potential benefit increases as well, in a sustainable manner, in a way that's sustainable for the budget. But we also need to figure out how we're going to recruit employees to fill those job openings that are currently exist. It doesn't sound like a big issue. It's not real flashy for citizens to hear, but that's one of the places where we're going to have to go first is figure out how to stabilize the workforce in Boone County government.
We will start with Kip Kendrick on the second question from the league. County commissioners serve on many different community committees with a focus on different issues. What committees and issues interest you the most?
There are a number of them. I think without giving it away too much, I would want to serve on the READY board. READY does a great job in the community as far as economic development, and that's going to be a critical issue. Boone County has seen growth over the last several decades. And if we are not looking to continue to grow, if we do not continue to grow over the next decade, we're going to be in a very critical space, and we're going to be in a very real problems. The labor workforce shortage is not going anywhere. This is going to be a decades-long issue, and you're going to see communities fighting over getting new blood in their community. And so we're going to have to work on training and retraining in our current workforce, and then also continuing to grow Boone County so that we can fill the needs of our community as we continue to see older generation retire.
All right, and we'll come to Connie Leopard. I'll repeat the question. County commissioners serve on many different community committees with a focus on different issues. What committees and issues interest you the most?
Well, I have to tell you that I've been attending commission meetings since mid-January, 2 per week. And I'm a very plugged in community member. I've attended regional sewer district meetings. I've attended Boone County Fire District meetings. I've attended READY meetings. I believe it's critical that Boone County has what we need to progress forward, which will involve critical infrastructure needs within the county. So I will definitely be serving. I would be asked to serve on those committees. READY is important. Workforce is important. I would continue the work I'm already doing on those committees right now, because that's where I believe the engagement happens within Boone County by seeing a presiding commissioner active and engaged with the committees and the boards that involve the commission and the work of our government. I'm very plugged into that already, and I will continue that work tirelessly.
We'll go to another question, and Connie Leopard will start this one. In what areas do you think the county and Columbia can improve their collaboration?
There are a lot of issues that need a collaboration. In my opinion, that's really the key to saving taxpayers money. Collaboration on roads and infrastructure improvements between not only the cities, which there's more than the City of Columbia within Boone County, and the presiding commissioner will be dealing with that with other smaller communities, as well as the state of Missouri and MoDOT. We have several issues that would be beneficial to save costs for us to have collaboration, as well as getting, as you mentioned, all the other boards that we have within the county and the city, where we can collaborate on other issues within the fire district, the city firefighters, and find those areas where we can save money and collaborate and work better together. I believe that Mayor Barbara Buffalo will welcome those conversations.
Kip Kendrick, same to you. In what areas do you think the county and Columbia can improve their collaboration?
Yeah, there are some very good examples out there of cities and counties that have consolidated services. we need to be looking at those and trying to figure out some best practices in those areas. I'm not going to say that I know exactly what those are right now, but that's an area where we should certainly research. Budgets are going to continue to grow even tighter. The county's budget is tight right now. The city budget is relatively tight, and that's going to continue. That trend's going to continue over the next decade plus. And so wherever we can collaborate, potentially consolidate services in order to save taxpayer money is going to be important. One area that we need to be talking about more is just the growth on the city periphery in the county, and making sure that we're working together in order to plan for that growth and plan for future infrastructure needs in those areas, because we will continue to grow. And as I said, if we're not, then we're in real trouble.
A follow-up kind of related to this, and I'll start with Kip Kendrick on this. What is your relationship now with the mayor and or city manager for Columbia?
Yeah, I've had Barb Buffalo and I actually knew each other. We became friends when we served on the Environment and Energy Commission together, I think back in 2005, or that's when I started. She started in 2006. So we've had a long time friendship, good relationship with her, good working relationship with all council members as well. And good working relationship with the city manager, with the assistant city manager, and other cities, other city employees. And that's going to be critical moving forward. There are going to be times where the city and the county don't agree on things, and that's going to be important. We need to disagree at times, but there always has to be that level of respect. I can't tell you how many times down the Capitol I became embarrassed because the problems that were happening at the city of Columbia and the county level were being talked about inside the Capitol, and some of those issues are being worked out inside the Capitol, and we can't have that. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing for our local delegation, and whatever disagreements may exist, we have to work through those as collaboratively here in Boone County.
Connie Leopardson, question to you, your relationship with those who are leading the city right now.
My relationship with this, I know Barbara Buffalo. I've reached out to several council members to have meetings with them. Some I have been successful at meeting with them. Everyone's really busy right now. I know that for sure. So what my plan as a community leader plugged into the community, we must have those good relationships. I was able to build relationships across the country with women in construction and my business. I have multiple relationships with all business leaders across the community. That would be added to my plate to develop those better relationships within the city. I have not been a politician. I'm an average everyday citizen. So those connections would be high on my priority list to make. And I know with my skill set of administration and I would be able to work together, collaborate for the best results for the city and the county.
We're going to move to questions. We have one question that was handed in from an audience member and another one from one of our participants who is on Zoom. This is from here in this room. And Connie Leopard, you start with this one. The county is sitting on millions of dollars, and news just said personal property taxes are going up 20% to 30%. How do you plan on giving it back to the taxpayers?
Well, right now, the state statute on property taxes states that the property tax rates are based on the NADA book for vehicle values. So as prices and increases in the sales costs of used cars have gone up so highly, that those tax rates are automatically going to be going up. That's by state statute. So to give money back to the county is not within the commission's purview to be able to do that. However, I would say that we need to be very careful with how our money is being spent right now, because although we have increases in sales tax revenue, we are also dealing with an unprecedented inflation rate. We may go up 6% in our sales tax right now, but if inflation is 8.5%, you're already two percentage points down on what you've got in the county budget. Our prices are increasing, our cost for doing business is increasing. We've got to be very careful with what is being collected, how it's being allocated, and how it's being spent. So unfortunately, the commission is not going to be in a position to give money back to the taxpayers.
Kip Kendrick, same question. Do I need to repeat it?
No, you don't. There was some frustration on my part, when the governor called the special session on tax cuts. There's a $700 million a year tax cut. The average everyday citizen is not going to see a whole lot from that. It will disproportionately impact the wealthier individuals. What, in my opinion, what should have been prioritized was the personal property tax issue. There was a bill moving during session. It was very close to getting across the finish line. It was attached to 2 or 3 other bills at that time. They all got cut up in the last day and didn't pass. That would have addressed this issue. It would have allowed the assessors to look at a 3-year average rather than the previous year data, where we all saw the used car value go up. And that became a problem. Now everybody's personal property tax on a vehicle that's devaluing, or that typically devalues every year, are going to be paying more on taxes this next year than they did the previous year, and that's a problem. That's a problem for people who are struggling with inflation, struggling to make ends meet.
We'll go to another question. This is from the participants through Zoom. And we'll start with Kip Kendrick. And this question is, I think, more for you than it is for your opponent. Will you pledge to finish your term if elected and not leave to vacate to pursue other career opportunities?
Yes, 100%. I will, if I'm successful, then I pledge to run for re-election in 4 years. If successful, then I would strongly consider running for a 3rd term and serve 12 years. My decision to leave the House of Representatives and go to the Senate was a decision where I was turned out of the House, making $37,000 a year as a House member with a young family. That's just the way the laws are set up, right? Term limits. You have to look what's the next opportunity. It provided me an opportunity to move over to the Senate and actually have a larger seat at the table on impacting policy than I was on the House side. Talking with the governor in the governor's office, I knew that special session would be called, or the special election would be called in April, and that seat would just be vacant for about 2 months prior to being filled. And so, yes, I will run for, I will fulfill my term, and I will pledge to run for re-election in 4 years.
Connie Leopard, I'll need to reformulate this question a little bit for you. What are your plans, and how does this fit into Connie Leopard's future and your goals as either a county commissioner, presiding commissioner, or what else you have planned?
Well, I will say that, as I mentioned before, I've been trained in legal and fiduciary responsibilities for boards and commissions, and I don't believe that it is in the best interest of the county to be on a ballot and then resign 2 weeks later. I just don't think that's a good look for a representative that's been elected by the people. And I know that is an issue for some of the voters as I've been knocking on doors and hearing about it. That being said, I am a very hard worker. I have no plans for retirement. I believe that the county is benefiting from the experience, the expertise that I have, the administrative skills that I know I can bring to the commission to help the citizens of Boone County to be served very well. And I have no plans for retirement. And as long as I can be elected, I will be elected. I will say this, as a politician and one that wants to move up the ladder, you've got to always be worried about what you're doing, the decisions that you're making, and how it impacts your future. And I understand that. I am not a politician by trade. I am here to face whatever issues are within the county, those hard decisions that need to be made. I'm ready and willing to make those decisions, help the county move forward, and the voters will either choose to rehire me or not, but I'm not afraid to face issues that need to be faced.
Let me ask you this, and we'll start with Connie Leopard on this one. What should the relationship be of a presiding commissioner of Boone County with those in Jefferson City?
Well, I think the presiding commissioner in Boone County should have really good relationships with the folks in Jefferson City, knowing the elected leaders from Boone County as well as across the state. I believe that will be a good, one thing that I would really focus on, those connections. I know Kip has those connections for many years. However, I will say that Boone County is large enough and wealthy enough that we have a lobbyist that is working for Boone County all of the time. So that's something that's very good about Boone County. However, I absolutely will spend my time in Jefferson City when I need to on county issues.
Kip Kendrick, same question.
Yeah, I have strong relationships in Jefferson City. During my 8 years in Jefferson City, I can't recall seeing, I think I saw one county commissioner in there one time during my 8 years from Boone County, and that's a problem. We're just 30 minutes down the road. I'm good friends with the approach chair. I talk with him on a regular basis on the Senate. I'm friends with the House budget chair. I have friends across the executive branch. Those will be important. Those connections that I have at the state level are going to be important, especially while the state continues to have money, continues to have federal dollars and a decent amount of general revenue on the balance. We can have a larger seat at the budgeting table, and those budget decisions are made from the governor's recommendation all the way through the budgeting process. Then that's going to help us leverage more dollars here and move more capital improvement projects forward. And I have those strong relationships.
Let's follow up to spending and what to do with money, and start with Kip Kendrick on this one. What are your thoughts about using the ARPA funds?
Well, I'm very frustrated that there really has been very little conversation at the county level. The county received $17.5 million, a little over a year ago now, and has received the second half for a total of $35 million. But there's been very little public conversation about how they plan to spend those money. There's been little public input sought on what the public sees as a good opportunity to use to spend those funds. These are one-time funds. We're going to have to look at more capital improvement projects. We're not going to be able to prop up new programs that have ongoing expenditures. We're going to have to spend the money appropriately and spend it in a timely fashion. The clock's ticking right now. It has to be appropriate by the end of 24 and spent by the end of 2026. With tight labor market, with potential supply chain issues continuing, that's going to be a problem to get all that money spent in meaningful way and done so in a timely fashion.
Connie Leopard, same question to you about how to use the ARPA funds.
Well, one thing that needs to improve is the engagement with the community on the ARPA funding. I've been attending the commission meetings, as I said, since mid-January. There's very little conversation about that and little to no engagement with the public. And I believe that it needs to be done. The commission needs to go into the community. I would be an advocate to reach out to all of the communities within Boone County, not just the city of Columbia, because these funds are a one-time expense or a one-time revenue source that we need to really prioritize what our needs are within Boone County. And that needs to be a discussion with the citizens of the county. And I would be full force in getting that message out and arranging those conversations and engagement events with the community.
I'm going to ask this question, and this will be our final question. Then we'll have closing comments. Connie Leopard, you first, and it can be a short answer, whatever you want to do within the time limit. What about this position appeals to you?
What it appeals to me is just the service that you can give to the community based on your experience, your life experience, your career experience, your community experience, and community engagement. Citizens of Boone County deserve to have a very active and engaged presiding commissioner. It's not just to go to the meetings and sit in meetings. It's going into the community, a boots on the ground sort of approach. And that's the kind of person that I am. I want to go to the people and talk to and engage them where they're at. That's what really excites me, because we are a very diverse community with rural and urban centers, with the University of Missouri here. And that is what is the beauty about Boone County. The people that are here, the people who live here, the people who want to live here. And I'm just very excited to serve the citizens of this county, serve them well based on my experience and expertise. I'm really looking forward to doing that should I be elected.
That sounds like a closing statement. We'll come back to you if you want to add to that. Kip Kendrick, what appeals to you about this position?
I don't say this lightly, but there's no doubt in my mind that I'm the right fit at the right time for this position. And I'll elaborate a little bit on that. The last 8 years, it really last 17, 18 years of service inside Boone County, inside Columbia, and service inside the General Assembly have all been education. My understanding of a complex multi-billion-dollar budget is going to serve Boone County very well. My experience, my connections, my attitude, my demeanor, I seek dissenting opinions, and that was what worked so well for me in a supermajority in Jefferson City. I never yelled at Republicans or trashed them for who they are, their beliefs. I built relationships with them. And I don't care whether you're a Democrat or Republican, independent in Boone County, I'm going to do the same. That's who I am. And if I am in a room where people all agree with me, then I'm going to step outside that room and I'm going to go find someone who disagrees with me and learn from that interaction, learn from that conversation.
A minute remaining for each of you. Kip Kendrick, you first, whatever else you want to add tonight.
Yeah, what I want to add is, win or lose, I have had the time of my life on this campaign. I've knocked thousands upon thousands of doors. I've got this great team of interns with me that are out there. We've hit, as of today, over 35,000 doors. You know, I made the decision early on, rather than sitting in meetings and listen to bureaucrats and listen to the conversations among current elected officials, I was going to get out and talk to the people every single day, 4 or 5 hours a day, 5, 6, 7 days a week, knocking doors, asking people what they expect. You know what the most common question is? What does the commissioner do? That is by far the most common question I get. I've probably heard 1,000 times, and that has to change. We have to elevate this position, not just within Boone County, but across the state, because this is a damn good place to live. Excuse my radio there. Excuse me for that. But this is a great place to live, and it's going to continue to be. And I'm excited about being that next generation of experienced leadership that takes us to that level.
Connie Leopard, what do you have to say in closing?
I love Boone County, as so many people do. I grew up here most of my life, raised my family here, grew a business here. A plugged-in community member with executive leadership experience in administration, in planning and zoning and construction. And I believe so much in the fact that we need experienced leadership within the county where you can get along with those elected officials that are already in the county building, looking forward to the future, planning for the progression of this county in a positive way. And I know with my experience in executive leadership and in a small business, planning, zoning, infrastructure issues within Boone County, I'm the right candidate at this point in time for Boone County with my experience and commitment to this county.
Connie Leopard, Kip Kendrick, they're the candidates for Boone County Presiding Commissioner, and we appreciate them being here tonight. We're going to take 2 minutes for radio to do a couple of announcements and also for us to make a transition here. Next up, we will have the Boone County candidates for Recorder of Deeds. We'll be back in 2 minutes. that are contested races for Boone County positions. We just heard from the presiding commissioners. Next up, the ever exciting job of recorder of deeds. And I say that because we've already gone through this with the primary race, but now we have the race that will decide who the next recorder of deeds will be. I'll get to the candidates in a moment. The recorder of deeds is responsible for making a record of documents, primarily in real estate and the issuance of marriage licenses. In addition, uniform commercial code, military discharge papers, tax liens, and miscellaneous documents may be recorded upon request and in compliance with the statutes. As we just saw, we're going to have 2 minutes for opening statements from both of our candidates, and then we will take a minute to answer questions. We'll start with the questions from the League of Women Voters. If those of you who are following us on Zoom have questions, put it in the chat section. Those of you who are in the audience, if you'd like to submit a question for our 2 candidates, please feel free to do so also. We are going to start again with the order of how they appear on the ballot, and then the reverse order for the closing statements. Shimon Jones is our first on the ballot, and she is here. It's good to meet you. I have not had the chance before tonight, so welcome. Your 2-minute opening statement, please.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity. I'm Shimon Jones. And I am a 6th-generation Mid-Missourian. I graduated from Rockbridge High School and Columbia College in business. I lost several family members, like a lot of people in this community, over the last few years. So that caused me to begin to look into my family history and my family background. In that process, I learned that my family had a 300-year-old church in our family that 150 years ago it burned down, and 4 of my great uncles rebuilt it, and their 4 headstones are right at the front of the cemetery. That is actually in Callaway County. However, both of my family bloodlines go back 6 generations between Boone County and Callaway County. So initially, what I was trying to do a year ago was to make that a historic site to preserve history. I wanted to, with the losing of a lot of family members, we have a disconnection in our generational lines, and I think that causes a lot of heartache. And when people know where they come from, or when they know that they have a family history, that it brings healing to them and to their family, especially a part of the Black community, because they feel so disconnected. So what I've been able to do is, in tracing that back, is to share that with others in the community, to share that with my family. Like I said, we lost our mom and then my kid's dad. And so being able to tell these stories and connect those generational lines became vital for me. So that's where I started to dig up records. And in doing so, I ended up in the Recorder of Deeds office doing my research. So this was something that I was already doing and already bringing to the community. And I'm sure, as you'll learn later on throughout this night tonight, that I am not your ordinary Recorder of Deeds. This is about liberating a people and not about an election.
All right, thank you, Shimon Jones. Now, Bob Nolte, your opening statement, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, David. I'm Bob Nolte. I'm running for Boone County Recorder of Deeds. I came to Boone County about 10 years ago to work for Mizzou. I've now made this my home, and I want to serve you as the next Recorder of Deeds. As David said, the recorder manages documenting real estate transactions, issuing marriage licenses, tax liens, recording of military discharge documents. It's a strongly administrative position. I spent most of the last decade working in the Mizzou Athletic Compliance Office. I was Director of Compliance. In that role, I interpreted legislation, put in place policies and procedures to make sure that that legislation was met, worked with a diverse group of stakeholders, and implemented new technologies to make the office more efficient. I want to bring these management skills to running the recorder's office. I'm proud to have the endorsement of our previous 2 recorders, who served a combined 44 years in the position, Betty Johnson, who served for 36, and Nora Dietzel, who is retiring after 8 years as Recorder of Deeds. If elected, I want to make sure our technology is up to date, ensure that you have secure and efficient access to your records, and make sure that if you do need to come into the office, you get great customer service. I'm excited for the opportunity to work hand in hand with the great staff that we have in the office. The Recorder's Office has a reputation statewide of being a leader in the area, and I'm running to continue that great tradition. I'd like to thank League of Women Voters and Columbia Public Library, and I'm excited to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
All right, we'll get to the questions now, and we'll start with the ones that the League of Women Voters have put to us tonight. And we'll start with Shimon Jones for this one. What leadership skills would you bring to this job?
I am currently over a 3-state region for FedEx office. I handle all of mid-Missouri and Iowa and Arkansas. I am over their corporate accounts, only their social accounts. So I handle a university with multiple campuses and a nationwide account as a part of my portfolio. Whenever I stepped into that role is when COVID hit. So technology became the way that I was onboarded. I actually happened to be one of the first people that was onboarded during COVID, completely online. And so during that process, I picked up a lot of the technology and the new way that they were doing things and was able to teach it to my team and also present and help out the people that were over the entire Eastern sales market, which is the entire East half of the United States.
Let's go to Bob Nolte for the same question. What leadership skills would you bring to this job?
Well, at the university, I've been lucky. I've been a part of a lot of great teams, worked with a lot of great leaders. So having that experience and great mentors in leadership in running this office, I think would be really important. In compliance, it requires a high level of attention to detail, making sure that every I is dotted and T is crossed. Part of my role at Mizzou was education, and I want to bring that to this role. So making sure that the citizens know what services the recorder's office is able to provide them. Knocking doors, again, one of the things we hear the most is what does the office do and what can you do for me? And then finally with technology at the university, I implemented 2 different technology systems. So having experience in sourcing those systems, getting everybody onboarded will be really beneficial in the recorder's office.
I think this next question probably is a pickup from what you just finished saying, and we start with Bob Nolte on this one. The Boone County Recorder of Deeds must make, record, and preserve a vast array of documents. What is your experience to ensure that you can perform the duties of this office?
So as I mentioned a little bit with the university, my work there, having been detail-oriented, recording, keeping track of various pieces of legislation, interpretations that we are providing coaches. But since I've left there, have really delved into what the state statute says, wanted to learn exactly what it is the recorder does, making sure that I understand how those systems work. Again, with the experience of putting in place technology, we'll want to look at what technology options are available to make sure that those records are both protected, but also efficiently and accessible to the public as needed.
Okay, I'll come to Shimon Jones. I'll repeat this question. The Boone County Recorder of Deeds must make, record, and preserve a vast array of documents. What is your experience to ensure that you can perform the duties of this office?
So whenever I first started working at FedEx office here in town, that was my job. I did litigation, copying. People brought in and entrusted their family albums, and we would have to take every single piece of item and copy it, sharpen it, and make sure that it was okay. Copying litigations, we are a very trusted source for for both government offices for litigation. We've been copying those and being responsible for those. Those are some things that we cannot mess up on. As far as the day, they get quality checked twice. So I quality checked them as well as did them myself.
Let's start with Shimon Jones on this one. What are the strengths of the current Recorder of Deeds office as you understand them?
I would say initially setting it up when she came in, because as far as I'm concerned, she had a less of a hands-on approach, but to me, then that would come from developing that office from the moment that you came in. So I would say that she did a wonderful job as far as getting everybody trained and making sure they understood the importance of the job so that she could go and do more research on things like Real ID and other conferences that they have around the state that pertain to the Recorder of Deeds office, like when different laws or guidelines change. I'm also connected with the Recorder of Deeds out of Callaway County, and we've been working together for the last few years and had many conversations about the different things that are coming up, and that will be first and forefront in this next coming up year.
Bob Nolte, same question to you. What do you find are, in your opinion, and from what you know, are the strengths of the current recorder's office?
So the recorder's office worked diligently through COVID. Last year, they did 36,000 real estate transaction records, recorded those. While some people were home, some people were in the office. I think they have a great staff in place. The chief deputy, Karen Johnson, really has been a long time employee and does a great job with that staff. And I think they do provide that great customer service that I think is so important. It is something that, again, I want to emphasize, not because it's a deficiency, but because it's something that I feel is important for county government. Your tax dollars are paying for those salaries. We should be as helpful and accommodating as possible.
If anyone has questions from the audience here, fine. If anyone from Zoom has one, and we've just been handed. So this is from an audience member here. And we start with Bob Nolte on this one. If the Supreme Court invalidates gay marriage, what can you legally do as recorder of deeds to protect that right for Boone Countyans?
So I will support all people looking for marriage licenses, regardless of sex or gender. I think that if the Supreme Court were to invalidate marriage equality, much as we saw with the Dobbs decision, there will be a lot of confusion in that those early days. I think it's important that Boone County citizens know they have a recorder that's going to do everything they possibly can to make sure we can still give those marriage licenses. And I'll work with our county legal counsel to make sure that we are doing everything we possibly can. Whether it's looking at older lawsuits that still might be present, just making sure that we are doing everything we can to continue to respect the marriage rights of all people in Boone County.
And we'll have the same question for Shaman Jones. If the Supreme Court invalidated gay marriage, what would you do as recorder of deeds to protect that right for Boone Countyans?
I think I'd have to start off with the conversation, because the recorder of deeds office does not change any laws. They do not have any power over whether or not gay marriage is there or not. They literally abide by the law. I am a law-abiding citizen. I have been studying diversity and inclusion and have been a voice for FedEx office for the last 3 years for diversity and inclusion for my team, and have shared different stories and different family experiences over that Eastern sales market region. And so I think what I'm going to do is try to make it not about something that is divisive or something that isn't like a policy change that we can do, but more so just be the voice in the community and serve the community the way that it is. You can talk to other people, but the recorder of deeds position does not make any legislation on gay marriage.
We'll start with Shaman Jones, on this question. How would your political affiliation impact the performance and your objectives holding the position recorder of deeds?
The only way that I think that it would influence is just by giving the love of Jesus Christ. I was blessed to be raised in a Christian home and give grace and love to everybody. It's not my job to bring that to the table as far as if there was anything, like I said, with policy change. I think people try to look for things to make things divisive, but it's more so about showing grace and having patience and being understanding regardless of who's in front of you and what we're talking about.
Bob Nolte, same question to you. That is, how would political affiliation impact how you would run the recorder of deeds office?
I think that's probably number 3 in the questions I get is, why is this an elected position? Why are you partisan? What does this have to do with recording deeds? And what I've told people when I'm talking to them on their door is, number 1, this is an administrative job. We want someone that's a seasoned administrator running this office. But the running as a Democrat really speaks to my values. It's that I'm going to treat everyone equally and be working hard for all of our citizens, no matter if they vote for me or not, or if they're able to vote. It's going to be every single person will get the same service within the recorder's office.
We start with Bob Nolte on this one, and I think this is something that maybe you started to address a while ago, but I'd like to hear more, and also from Ms. Jones, examples of the reactions that you have received as you have campaigned. I think you've said that people are asking what in the world does a recorder of deeds do? But what other kind of reactions are people giving someone who is campaigning for this position?
So number one is, what does the job do? Understanding what the services are that the county recorder's office can provide. That's a big one that I've hit on, is letting people know that they can sign up for a notification service, that if there's a change in their title, they get an email. We've seen a rise in title fraud. So making sure that people are aware of the services we already provide. A lot of the questions are, why a Democrat? Why this office? What makes you want to be recorder of deeds? And I'll tell them, I want to serve you. I want to make sure that when you need this office, hopefully it's not something that's really bad, but when you need this office, you're going to get great service from it. And then we've had interesting questions where someone says, can you tell me about how I looked this deed up? Was able to email someone a copy of a mortgage lien that they had to show that they had paid off their mortgage. They weren't able to track it down. So just serving them, being as helpful as possible were some of the unique ones.
Shimon Jones, same question for you. What kind of reactions have you been receiving as you campaign?
First off, I will tell you that it's not easy coming out as a Republican and being Black in a divisive environment and in a divisive community. But what I've been able to actually see really is just people to break down those walls of division, because what I do offer is history. I will tell you that I have 9 boards that I present on my family history that trace back their genealogy 6 generations. So it has birth certificates, death certificates, census records. It actually teaches people how to do that. And so actually I saw people crying in our Black community because they saw pictures of family members that they hadn't seen, or saw records that they had lost, because our family cemetery actually holds 4 major families here in Columbia. And so that's what I want to do, is to bring healing and bring that education there, and to continue that healing and have our Black community feel like they're actually a part of the community and like they have history, because they need that.
How would we'll start with you on this question, and it's for both of you, but specifically on what you're saying as far as what is motivating you and giving you a lot of energy on this, how would you get the message out to a community that you want to reach, saying, we could do this, we could walk with you through this process? And my second part of this, do you think the Recorder of Deeds office wants that kind of traffic through their offices?
I'm sure they may not. However, one of the things that I wanted to do to improve accessibility was having it open for 1 day out of the month, just as Rhiannon Lennon does. She opens up the county clerk's the county clerk's building once a month for people who work during the day. So, and honestly, I wouldn't even have a problem doing that myself and helping teach these people, people of the community. I'm already doing it. Also, I'm connected to 3 nonprofits that I'm able to talk to. I've had outreach at different churches about keeping records of family members who may not even have family members to keep those records, but just so that we can keep as much family history. I'm connected to Max Scholars, the Max Scholars program, and I'll be teaching and presenting my family history to them. So there is a wide range that I have as far as the nonprofits that I volunteer for, as well as my community ties, that I can really bring a lot of the information myself.
Bob Nolte, same question to you. Your opponent is focusing on I think kind of broadening the scope of what people might find through the Recorder of Deeds office. Your thoughts about doing that, and if you do agree that that would be something to do, how would you do it? And if you were the Recorder of Deeds, how would you handle that traffic flow?
Well, I do think it is important to let people know what services are available, how they can access their records, making sure that they have the ability to do so. Right now, the office is working through old documents and scanning backwards, so they're back into the mid-60s, but having those documents available online, so it doesn't necessarily have to be in person to be able to do that, is something I want to look at, and whether or not we are effectively getting through those in a timely manner. I know some other counties have utilized certain funds to bring those records up to date. Want to partner with the Boone County Historical Society. I think those groups do great work, and they would be ones that can kind of take on some of that educational role, that mantle. I think we want to make sure first and foremost, that we're providing an efficient office, and then work with the partners outside of that time to make sure that everyone has access and is able to achieve what they want to do with those records.
Before we ask for your closing comments, I'm going to ask just kind of a general question. What have you liked about campaigning? What have you liked about the last several months when you tried to get your name out there and your voice heard and your positions understood? We start with Bob Nolte.
So I've been long time volunteer for other candidates. So door knocking was always something that I enjoyed doing. It was a strange experience to start doing it for myself. On my first day, I actually had a young person come up to me and go, "Oh, you're the guy on the card that you're holding," and was very impressed by that. So that was a little bit of a different experience, but it really is getting out into the community, getting to tell people about what this office does. We know it's not front of mind for most people, but hopefully if there is something down the road where they do need the office, if they get an interest in looking up their historical records, if they need a copy of their marriage license in order to get a real ID, they can think back and know, oh, I talked to the recorder, or at least hopefully they'll remember it's a county position and can go to the county website or come to the library. I know the library will help them out with that too. But it's definitely something, it's been a great experience just to be able to tell people what this office does, why it's important, and why I feel like I can best serve them.
Siobhan Jones, same question for you. What has kind of energized you through this process of running for this position?
The response from people in my community. Being from here and having a long lineage, a lot of people were just happy to see a minority running for office in our community. Something that is not strange for us is to have leadership come from outside, especially since we have 3 universities here. So here in my community that I've been a part of for 6 generations, we're used to having outside leadership come in and run our offices, and for them not really having a voice. And so what's been a blessing is to see people that show hope. It doesn't matter whether they were Black, white, Hispanic, Chinese, gay, straight, trans, it didn't matter. I represented hope because I was something different. We've constantly had people that fit that same model that goes to be in leadership. And I want people in this community to know that just because you're Black or just because you grew up here does not mean that you cannot be in leadership here in this town, because we don't see it and we need to.
Closing statement time, and Bob Nolte, you get the first closing minute.
Again, thank you for the opportunity. I do appreciate being able to tell you a bit about myself and why I'm running for this position. A couple things I did want to mention. So one quick, easy update that I do want to make in the office is putting our marriage license request online. Right now, they have people wanting to get married have to come in, fill out the paperwork in person. Can be an online request process. We've seen other counties do it. So simple, efficient solutions that'll make it more effective to interact with our office. Do want to mention a couple other endorsements. So have the support of both the Northern District Commissioner Janet Thompson, as well as Southern District Commissioner Justin Aldred, and our assessor Kenny Moore. And Kenny would be the one that I would work very closely with if elected in terms of turning over all the records to the assessor's office, kind of starting that process of taxation in county government. I'm really excited to serve in this position. I hope that you will afford me the opportunity to do so. I'm Bob Nolte, and I ask for your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Closing statement now from Siobhan Jones.
So currently, we've heard about being over certain policies and making sure that accuracy is, I guess I should say the experience and accuracy. But I will tell you is that I'm over not just the same departments that my opponent was over, but I'm actually over it for multiple campuses for that same area with those same regulations, with those same guidelines throughout not just one department, but all the departments of the University of Missouri. And so as far as my leadership goes, I do have leadership skills. I've literally brought our FedEx team, I single-handedly brought back their bonuses back during COVID just by gaining the influence in my community and creating those ties in the community that can build those strong relationships as a leader for mid-Missouri. And so what I want to do is to be able to be a sign of hope to people in my community that it doesn't matter, even if you were here, it doesn't matter whether or not you had the same opportunities as other people, that you can still fight for what you believe in, you can still be a leader, you can still affect, and you can actually turn an office that was genuinely internal external to the community and help them out. I've also talked to Nikki Davis as far as with the homeless population because of the veteran registration. I know a lot of people are concerned about the homeless population downtown, and I think that that office could honestly help out as far as working with them to help get the veterans there, at least there, and get them properly registered so that they can start to begin to get their benefits. Also, like I said, the future is with our children, and if they don't understand the importance of record keeping by reaching them young and about keeping those family stories, then we're going to lose a generation and we're going to lose community ties, which causes people to feel hopeless and feel desperate and not have the best outcome. So I would say that vote for Shimon Jones, because you are voting for someone that's local, but someone that's passionate and somebody that's committed and somebody that's going to do this before and after.
Shimon Jones and Bob Nolte, candidates for Recorder of Deeds. We appreciate them being here. We'll take another 2-minute break, and next up, we're going to have the candidates for Boone County Treasurer. They'll come up to the front during this 2-minute break. Our radio stations will rejoin us after this. This is our League of Women Voters Forum from the Columbia Public Library. And we're back at Columbia Public Library again. This is the first of 2 Wednesday nights in a row that there will be candidate forums and then ballot issue next week, in addition to the candidates for state representative from 3 of the contested districts. And we appreciate the Columbia Public Library for hosting us, and also for the League of Women Voters for the work that they put into hosting these candidate forums, and they've done it so well for so many years. So thank you. And then thanks to our audience on Zoom for participating that way. And if you have questions for the Boone County Treasurer candidates, be sure to get those before 25 minutes or so with them is expired. And then also, if you have questions here, and if you've already used your index cards and need more index cards, they're at the back, or else we can bring them to you. So we have the candidates, Dustin Stanton and Jenna Radel, who are at the front of our room here at Columbia Public Library. They are running for county treasurer. And again, a summary of what this means. The county treasurer is an elected official responsible for receiving, dispersing, and investing all funds for the county and ensuring that monies are correctly segregated into separate funds as required by law. The treasurer manages the county's $100 million investment portfolio and is focused on ensuring county money is invested safely and securely, that investments meet the liquidity necessary for the county's cash flow needs, and that investments achieve the best yield possible. The treasurer issues all general obligation bonds and revenue bonds for the county. The treasurer is responsible for safeguarding the county's unclaimed property and returning the property to citizens and entities. My wife is my treasurer. I would not run for this office very well. So we'll have 2 minutes to introduce yourselves, and again, we'll go in the order of the ballot order. And then for our questions, you'll have a minute, and then at the close, we'll have a minute. We'll start with the opening statements, then we'll go to the questions from the League of Women Voters. And so we will go in this order. Dustin Stanton, it's a pleasure to welcome you to the event tonight, and we'd like to hear your opening comments.
Well, thank you, David. It's a pleasure to meet you as well. It's a pleasure to be with you all this evening. I'm so honored to be here for the invitation to talk to you all this evening. My name is Dustin Stanton. My family has been in Boone County since 1845. I grew up here and started a business at the age of 6 called Stanton Brothers Eggs. By the time I was 16, it was recognized as the nation's largest independent free-range egg operation by the USDA. Gone to school at Centralia and went on to receive my further education from the University of Missouri, where I had coursework with emphasis in advanced accounting, monetary policy, and money and banking. Throughout my time here, I've been really involved in the community. I was always the little kiddo at the back that was always crying when he was only six months old, because my parents always brought me to school board meetings and things like that, because it was always invested into me that you should be a part of this community and you should give back to it, because this is home. This is what I love. As far as my involvement in the community, I have served as the president of the Columbia Farmers Market, as the president of the Farm Bureau, as a co-chairman on the Columbia Chamber of Commerce, and as well as a liaison for the Boone County Extension Council. All volunteer positions, non-paid, where I was just giving my time back to make the community better, because that's what I believe we should do as individuals. Throughout my time as a business owner, I have ran my business for 24 years at this point. I have been responsible for making payroll, for the accounting, for budgets, for cash flows, as well as the balance sheets. I believe that I bring both academia as well as real world experience to the office, which I am currently holding.
All right, thank you, Dustin Stanton. Jenna Rado, your opening comments, please.
Thank you, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting us tonight and the library. My name is Jenna Radel. I've been working in state and local government for the last 25 years. I am committed to public service. It brings me great joy. I am the kind of public service nerd that has dressed up like Leslie Knope from Parks and Rec for multiple Halloweens. I have watched every episode of The West Wing multiple times. It renews my spirit because I like to see smart people working hard to improve the community that they live in. And so I started my career in public service. First, when I was in high school and college, I was a victim advocate for people who have experienced domestic violence and sexual assault. I was a person that showed up at the hospitals and the courtrooms to help people navigate those systems. That led me to becoming a law enforcement officer just after I graduated from college. I entered a federal training program that was committed to bringing more diversity to law enforcement in general. And then also instilling in us a strong code of ethics, which sticks with me to this day. While I was serving in Central Missouri as a police officer, I started law school. So my daughter was about 8 years old at the time. I worked full-time as a police officer and then went to law school during the day. After the first year of that, I took some business law and investment law classes, realized I loved business, and I decided to also get my MBA. After I graduated with my law degree and my MBA, I took the bar. I became an assistant attorney general. I worked to defend taxpayers against fraud, corruption, and mismanagement. that led me to working at as the risk management and HR director for Boone County, which I continue to serve in that role today. I'm also on the board of directors of a local public service credit union, where I help select and manage the assets of that credit union so that we can protect our members' money and also earn enough to cover our operating costs.
We'll start in the questions, and we'll start with the questions from the League of Women Voters. Dustin Stanton, you'll get the first one here. The county treasurer has many responsibilities. What parts of this job are you most excited to work on?
Well, since I'm already in the position, I can already tell you that, for a matter of fact, is that I love working with the inner offices. Really, the treasurer's office is not an office a lot of folks know about. The only time we make the paper is when something really, really bad happens. So, the fact that we are more of an internal office where we receive money from all the different departments, that is something that I've really enjoyed. The fact that I'm able to be a core member of the team there at Boone County, it's just been something that's been awing to me, to be a team player for this county and to be someone who is helping each and every office in its own unique way.
Generator, some question to you. County treasurer has many responsibilities. What parts of the job are you most excited to work on?
So one of the things that's happening in Boone County right now is we are implementing a new system-wide finance system. It is very complicated. There are a lot of moving parts to it, but it is fascinating and it will do wonderful things for Boone County. I am most excited about getting into the nuts and bolts of that system and helping to develop some reports that will improve transparency, it'll improve accountability, it'll improve sort of the flow of information both to the public and also internally to our auditor's office to make sure that we have good safeguards and good checks and balances within our system.
We'll go to another question from the league, and this will be first for Jenna Radel. Can you explain your investment philosophy for the county funds?
Yeah, thank you. So one of the great things about Boone County is we have an investment policy that's already in place. It was created by Nicole Galloway back in 2013. It's still a good policy. And that policy sets 4 priorities for investments within the county. The first is legality, right? Above all things, we want to follow the law when making investments with taxpayer funds. The next thing after that is safety of the asset itself, right? We're not gambling with taxpayer money. We are investing it securely and safely. And then, the 4th thing on the list of priorities is earning a return on the investment, right? So safety, and then way below that is earning the maximum amount that we can on the money. And so those investment policies will direct what I do with county money.
All right, same question now for Dustin Stanton. Explain your investment philosophy for county funds.
Absolutely, just to follow up with what she said there. So legality is the first tier on that ladder. Liquidity is the 2nd tier, safety is the 3rd, and yield is the 4th tier. So with that being in mind, Nicole Galloway did do a fantastic job of setting the investment policy that we have today. And that is also set by state statute by the Missouri Constitution. So there's nothing that we can really do outside of what the Constitution says. Since I have started in the office, when I took over in the springtime, our ROI was at 0.8%. And I've already increased that in the past 6-7 months to 1.3%. So I've been able to bump up the ROI about 0.5% within 6 months, all within those parameters using bonds and really kind of erring away from CDs at this point in time, just because of the way the markets have gone. There's a lot of inverse relations going on in the bond markets right now. So we're trying to be very careful with what we're doing there. But I would say every single investment that we have is kept to full maturity. So even if the par value decreases or the face value decreases over 2 or 3 years, we will always take it to full maturity to have a positive ROI at the end of those investments.
I didn't do very well in economics in class. See, I mean, this is important things that you need to know and to talk about. This is going to be a question for Dustin Stanton after I introduce it. And you kind of alluded to this a moment ago. If I went out, I mean, this crowd knows who you are and who's running for this position, but I would say that we should just take a circle out to the library right now and ask people who the current treasurer is or what the importance of this position is. And I think people probably don't have an idea and they probably really don't care. So they're going to be faced with making that little decision on November the 8th. When you go out and campaign, first of all, what has your strategy been? And then how do you convince people, you know what, pay attention just for this one moment, if only for this moment, and put some importance on this.
You know, something that Kip alluded to when he was up here a few minutes ago, is that our county is at a pivotal time. There is new leadership coming into these positions. A lot of the senior positions of elected officials are retiring and terming out. By a few years from now, really, Janet Thompson will be the most senior elected official there. So something that I want to do is bring stability to the office. Since I am the treasurer, I think it's important to continue to be the treasurer. The investment strategies that I have in place have been able to look beyond my term. I think something that's really important is that the treasurer should not be making investments only to the end of their term, his or her term, but for the next 3, 4, 5 years for the betterment of the county.
Okay, Generator, I'm going to twist this just a bit, but the same question to you. You've campaigned for this position. Some people might say to you, the last time I paid attention to a treasurer position, it was my student council treasurer, and I just want to make sure they weren't wasting our money. You pointed out, I think on your website, we've had maybe 5 or 6 county treasurers in the last 8 years. So how do you convince people, pay attention to this for this election and then trust us that it's been handled well?
Yeah, it is. So we are in the midst of a lot of change. When I came to the county, there was a stable core of elected officials who had been in office for a tremendous amount of time. Kay Murray was the county treasurer until 2010. She served for 40 years in one position or another within county government. So Kay Murray left in 2010, and since that time, everyone who's come into this office has been appointed into the office. None of them stayed. It's turned over again and again. They get appointed, they're unopposed in the next election, and then they leave shortly thereafter. And so with June Pitchford, who's been our auditor for the last 35 years, she's retiring in December. So now we've got the 2 major financial arms of Boone County that are in the middle of instability. I've been there for 9 years. I've been through 9 budget cycles. I love Boone County government. I will stay as long as the voters of Boone County will keep me in office. And so that, I think it resonates with people that we are at a critical time and we really need some stability in the office.
We're going to start with you, Generator, on this one, and both of you on your websites mentioned transparency and how important transparency is for the county treasurer. Address that issue. Tell us how you would help us, those of us who might not be able to understand all of the depth of it, but help us understand the important part of what the treasurer is doing for the county.
There are 2 elements to transparency that I think are critically important. Transparency between the treasurer's office and the auditor's office within Boone County, critically important. The auditor's office, right, they know how to read all these financial statements, right? I don't expect members of the public to do a deep dive into these things, but our auditor's office and our treasurer's office should work in collaboration, sharing information so that if there is a problem, it's really easy to spot. And I think one of the ways that we can increase that transparency is by developing good reporting through this new finance system. But those reports, there's not a canned set of reports that are like fraud and mismanagement detection. You have to build them yourself, every piece of it. And so that I think is critically important. Those reports, right, can also be made for the public. And there are other Missouri treasurer's offices who every day, all of the treasurer's office pays a lot of the bills. All of the money that's exiting the county is just printed out in a report and posted automatically on the website every day. We could easily do that with this new finance system.
Dustin Stanton, same thing to you when you talk about transparency as an important pillar of what you like as far as being the county treasurer. Help us to understand that.
Absolutely. I would be interested to know what reports you think are not being shared with the auditor's office, because actually every single report that we do is given to the auditor's office every single day. We actually have a shared drive with the county to where everything that we do in the treasurer's office is put in that shared drive. And all the auditors and the team there can actually see every single thing we do. So there is nothing that's hidden in the treasurer's office. Everything is transparent. I do like the idea actually of putting on the website what the expenses and the income is for the day. That would be a great thing to implement. I'd be all in favor of that.
We'll start with, we've got questions from our audience, and so we'll go through these. I think we'll probably have time for all three of these. And Dustin Stanton, you're first on this. Which skills are needed most for county treasurer, leadership or financial experience?
You said most?
I said most.
Most.
Yes. What's are needed most for this position?
Well, the only reason I asked that question is because you really cannot have one of those without the other. Over the tenure of the treasurers, there have been treasurers who have had more advantages in one area or the other, but I really think it takes both of those to be a sufficient and an excellent treasurer at the end of the day. Leadership is important, not management. We're not there to manage our people, but we're there to lead them, to give them a vision, of transparency, a vision for the future of Boone County, and for the budgets and the way that things should be as far as accountability goes. As far as the idea of financial experience, I think that's also critically important. You cannot do this job without understanding GASB. You cannot do this job without understanding GAAP. You cannot do this job without understanding credits and debits. For me, I've been doing this for over 24 years at this point. So this is just the next step for me to really help the community in a more broader way.
Generator, how about your answer to the question? Which skills are needed most for this position, leadership or financial experience?
Yes, they are both critically important, right? So it's not just leadership within the office, right? It's leadership within the organization and it's leadership within the community. My leadership style is as a coach, right? I want to bring people together, collaborate, build their skill sets and help them accomplish their goals and goals that we set collectively. Right. The finance element is critically important. You have to understand the market. You have to be able to make these investments. You have to properly gauge the advice that you're getting from paid agents. You have to understand how they make money off of you and what their motivations might be for the advice they give you. All of those things are critically important.
We'll keep it with Jenna Radel right here. And another question from the audience. I think you've kind of both of you have touched on this, but we'll hear it again, another opportunity to phrase it however you would prefer. What professional and financial management skills would you bring to the office of treasurer?
Can you ask that one more time? I'm sorry.
What professional and financial management skills would you bring to this office?
Yeah, so specifically with investment and asset management, right? That I referenced this earlier, that's what I'm doing for the credit union, right? We are making decisions about what kind of financial products to invest in order to protect assets. That's a highly regulated market, just like government is highly regulated. I'll bring that skill set of being able to evaluate the law, evaluate the relevant regulations, and invest those products or invest in products that are legal for us and that will keep our assets safe and bring a good return on our investment while still keeping county assets safe.
Dustin Stanton, again, I'll read the question for you. What professional and financial management skills would you bring to the office of treasurer?
Well, I know I've already alluded to this, but I'll just repeat it again. The idea of academia and real world. I think that's so critical and so important. You find some folks that are so caught up in academia, and I love education. I think it's extremely important. Or you find folks that are so caught up in the real world and they don't understand how those two things go together. For me, I bring both of those things to the table. As someone who has ran a business for 24 years, I haven't had someone giving me a paycheck. I've had to work for that myself and earn that myself. And as the treasurer, I've been helping make payroll for the county every single cycle. In regards to the skills that are needed, I think that youth and energy is important, but on the flip side of that too, wisdom and experience. And so I bring a really unique set of values and experience to the table that really no one else can. And that's just something that I'm really passionate about sharing that with this community.
Dustin Stanton, you will start with you for this question. I'll go ahead and ask both questions on this card. They're related in a way. What excites you to encourage others to do what is right? Let's just stop with that, and then I'll come back to the other part. What excites you to encourage others to do what is right? I know you have put on your website accountability and oversight. That's kind of related to those 2 points.
So what encouraged me to do.
What excites you to encourage others to do what is right?
Wow, that's a good question, guys.
Like it's written, folks.
You know, for me, what excites me is when I see other people succeed. I am president of the Columbia Farmers Market. That is a volunteer position. I dedicate a lot of time to that. But what really excites me is when I see minority farmers, when I see small farmers, when I see first generation folks, when I see artisans and bakers come there and they succeed based on the things that we have set in place. What excites me is whenever I'm able to allow others to have the opportunity for success. To the treasurer's office, I think that it is in its own unique way, a way for me to provide opportunity to folks to have success. When others succeed, that is what excites me.
Generato, same question. I know on your website you talk about being ethical, so this is right up your alley. What excites you to encourage others to do what is right?
Yeah, so I mentioned before that code of ethics that was instilled in me when I was a part of the police corps. That whole experience was life-changing for me, right? Law enforcement, you have a tremendous amount of power. And so as a result, your personal ethics and how you live your life in your community, it reflects greatly on the office. People have to be able to trust you with that much power. When I was in the Attorney General's office, right, the same experience. There is a tremendous amount of power that comes with that office, and your ethics have got to be squared away to be in that position where you can have such a huge impact on other people's lives. Right, we as citizens expect high ethics out of those folks, and so in both as a police officer and when I was at the Attorney General's office, one of the things I enjoyed greatly was mentoring younger people in the profession and helping to instill that code of ethics, right? We don't take the free sodas. We don't take the shortcuts. We follow the law. We set a good example. It's critically important, and I still feel that way today.
Last question, and then we'll have closing comments. You both work for the county right now, right? I mean, you're doing HR and you're holding the position that you're running for. So this is, I like this question. What motivates you every day for the job that you are doing or would aspire to do? And Generator, we'll start with you.
I mentioned before, I love public service, right? I am a hard worker. I have always been somebody that puts in nights and weekends and those sorts of things. And I love doing that when the work that we are doing helps lift other people up, right? So that fills me with joy. It makes me love my job. I also love the people that I work with. They are wonderful, brilliant folks who, right? We're in public service. Nobody's doing this for the money, right? They're doing it because they care about it. And I love working with people who have that kind of commitment.
Dustin Stanton, what motivates you every day at your job?
My family has been here since 1845. Centralia wasn't even established since 1857. You know, for me, I love to go to the county. I go there every single day, 8 to 5. And as a matter of fact, you know what, guys? I go there actually on the weekends too sometimes, just to make sure the work gets done. But for me, those 4 walls of the Roger B. Wilson government building, even though I walk in there every day and it's really awing, it's really magnificent to do that, that can never be home. And the only reason I say that is because this community is the home. You know, the Magic Tree is my home. Up in Centralia, the Anchor Fest, down in Hartsburg, the Pumpkin Fest. This is where we've been at. My family's been at forever. I've got no plans of leaving. I've got no plans of dismissing from here. What excites me is just seeing the future of this community.
Closing statements now. Generator, you're first.
Thank you. So in the last 5 years, Boone County government has lost almost 200 years of experience and institutional knowledge with just 6 officials leaving. Almost 200 years of experience walked out the door. This is a critical time for us. We are transitioning into this new finance system. We're having a lot of turnover in our elected officials. Of the 13 elected officials in the county that were there when I started, come January 1 of 2023, there's only going to be 3 left. Everybody else is new. It is a wonderful time where we're going to see an influx of new energy and new ideas. But the checks and balances within our system, a lot of those walked out the door with our elected officials who've retired. I want to come in order to provide a stabilizing influence within this, to set up new checks and balances, utilizing this new system. And right, for me, this isn't a stepping stone to some other office. This is the work that I want to do. This is the place that I want to be. And again, I will stay here as long as the citizens of Boone County keep rehiring me.
Dustin Stanton, your closing comments, please.
I would agree that all the checks and balances are extremely important. Nothing has left in regards to that. All those checks and balances are still in place and will continue to be in place as long as I'm there. I think that's really important. Stability is key to this office. Having someone that looks beyond December, someone looks beyond the next term, and someone that actually understands the way cash flow works, that $1 today is not the same as $1 tomorrow. We have things like buying power that's going down in the county. We have some real issues going on here. When you have 8.5% inflation, you need folks there that are looking beyond the next election and folks that are understanding how to combat that. That's something that I'm passionate about doing. You know, I was certified here by the Missouri County Treasurers Association to do the job. And I'm going to take that and use that to further this for the county to do what's best for all the people.
He's Dustin Stanton. She is Generato. They are the candidates for Boone County Treasurer. Applause for them. Thank you both. That's a lot to both of you. And we will do our 2-minute break and come back for our final segment. And we'll be introduced to and hearing from the county auditor candidates after this. You're listening to the League of Women Voters Forum from the Columbia Public Library. Holmes with KFRU and the Cumulus stations in town telling us that we're back and we are in the Columbia Public Library for the last segment of this candidate forum. And we are going to introduce you to our candidates in just a moment. Just another reminder that a week from tonight, we will also have candidates in contested races for 3 state house positions. And then also there are ballot issues, and we will talk about those a week from tonight here in this same place. Thank you to our Zoom participants, and really thank you to the people who are in this room and are listening to the candidates tonight. It strikes me, as we've heard already, comments made about what this county leadership has had in the past as far as long-term servers, and Betty Johnson, Pat Linsmeyer, Tom Shawwecker, Wendy Noren, these names that if you've been in this county for a long time, they're no longer in these positions. They're no longer the people that we just automatically think of. Nora Dietzel is another one who is not running for re-election. Dan Atwell, presiding commissioner since 2011. He's not running for re-election. Well, right now we've got 2 candidates who want to take over for someone whose name has been synonymous with the position she's held since the early 1990s, and that's June Pitchford, who chooses not to run for re-election as auditor. So we will have a new auditor, and our guests are at the front, and they're here as our final candidates tonight. And running on the Republican ticket is Jason Gibson, and the Democratic candidate is Kyle Riemann. We'll hear from those in a moment, but as the league likes to do, and as I like to do, I'll tell you what the Boone County Auditor is responsible for. This person is responsible for establishing, implementing, and monitoring the accounting and budgeting systems of Boone County. The Boone County Auditor is responsible for preparing the county's official financial statements and coordinating the annual financial audit. As budget officer, the county auditor is responsible for preparing and submitting a proposed annual budget to the county commission and preparing all related budget documents and schedules. The county auditor also monitors compliance with internal control procedures, oversees accounts payable activities, monitors and evaluates the condition of county budgets and funds, and certifies contracts and expenditures. The Boone County Auditor also maintains property records and conducts physical inventories. And that takes half of their week. I don't know. That is quite a list of responsibilities for the auditor. We're going to give our candidates 2 minutes each to introduce themselves to us. And then when we get to questions, we'll start with the league's questions. Then we'll go to questions that have already been handed in from some of our audience members. And we'll take other questions from our Zoom participants or from those of you here in person in the room. So we'll start with our candidate comments, and we'll do it in the order that they are on the ballot. So Jason Gibson, welcome. You've got 2 minutes as your opening remarks.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you again for staying so late to listen to the last and definitely not the least, in my opinion, the most important office at the county. I've been at the county for 11 years. My family has been in this county for 6 generations. I've lived in Columbia almost all my life. Did a small stint in Minnesota. It was way too cold there, so we came back to Columbia. I've been married for 17 years to my beautiful wife, who's a nurse at Women and Children's Hospital with you. We have 3 beautiful children, Gwyneth, Adeline, and Emery. I have a vested interest in this office. I've been there for 11 years. I've learned from one of the best county auditors that this state has ever had. She's gained the respect of many of the other elected officials, both Democratic and Republican. And I've learned from her. I've gained knowledge from her, and the institutional knowledge that she holds is immeasurable. I've had the benefit of learning from some of that institutional knowledge, and with that unique experience and expertise, that really is one of the biggest reasons I'm running for this office. Also in my education, I'm a graduate of Rockbridge High School, graduated just a few years ago. And I also graduated from Columbia College in 2001. I received my Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. During that whole time, I worked full-time in banking. I also joined the National Guard. So I knew early on that I wanted to be a public servant. I joined when I was 17 and did my basic training while I was, everybody else was at the lake having fun. So for over a decade, I've been a devoted public servant, and I would wish to continue that with more service in the Boone County Auditor's Office.
And thank you, Jason Gibson. Kyle Riemann, your opening comments, please.
Thank you. My name is Kyle Riemann. I'm 33. I grew up in Warsaw, Missouri, which is a little lake town in the middle of nowhere, Missouri. I started getting involved in public policy in that small town because there wasn't a whole lot to do. And from there, I decided that I really wanted to try and make the biggest impact that I could at a young age. So I went on to go to Missouri State, where I got a major in sociology and economics, with the focus being on bureaucratic organization and trying to understand how policy impacts the lives of everyday individuals, meaning all of us. That continued until my senior year. I realized that the budget really controls about everything while I was at the university. So I looked into a legislative internship and wanted to just be on the budget committee, ended up working in the House and was with the ranking minority member on budget, which is Sarah Lampy at the time. And from there, that started my career doing 10 years of basically budget and policy analysis for the governor and the General Assembly, also doing financial review, audit and performance audit review, contract review, kind of a whole gambit, inventory review, everything that we do in the kind of this office. And that was basically my life. Besides that, and being an avid pet owner and nerd, and I also started a small business when I was 23 and had multiple now, doing real estate and other odd jobs that we can talk about because I'm out of time.
Okay, thank you, Kyle Riemann. Okay, let's go to the questions from the League of Women Voters. And I mentioned this a moment ago, June Pitchford not running for re-election. She's been the county auditor since 1991. We start with Jason Gibson on this one. What changes would you make in this office, if any?
Being there 11 years, I've helped make a lot of changes in our office. We've improved a lot of our efficiencies, automated our technologies. I automated our annual comprehensive financial report. Before, it was all basically hand typed. We actually took paper reports and entered them into an Excel and then added that into a Word document. I helped automate that process. The biggest thing that other candidates have talked about is our ERP process. And that is the only change that we have looked at. We're looking at automated all of those processes, creating stronger internal controls. That project has been ongoing for 4.5 years. So that would be my number one goal or change, is to complete that process. We're hoping to get that installed and implemented in early 2023.
I may be the only one ignorant enough, but I haven't asked what these acronyms mean, but tell me ERP, please.
Enterprise Resource Planning Software. So it's our financial, accounting, payroll, HR software. There's multiple modules. Yeah, it's very interesting.
For some. Kyle Riemann, the question for you, what changes would you make in an office that has been headed up by someone for the last 31 years?
Yeah, so the new ERP system that we now got educated on is critical, and there'll be lots of changes. I was actually the ERP administrator at the state and at the city of Columbia, have a lot of experience in how to program and bring those on, and deal with bugs and issues, and kind of speak the technical language. Big into like automating policy and reporting to basically do the work for you and find the inefficiencies through the reporting. And that's kind of what has been alluded to, I think, in the treasurer's segment, that there is ways to do that, but it has to be done with someone who has the skill set and know-how, which I do.
Kyle Riemann, you'll get this first question, or the first crack at this question, the second one from the League of Women Voters. This job requires preparing the county budget. We've already established that. What skills do you bring to enhance working with all the county departments on their budgets? Because the departments are going to come and advocate for their share of the pie. And how would you deal with that?
Sure. Again, I have 10 years experience dealing with that exact issue, both at the city of Columbia and at the state. My expertise was local government, corrections, judiciary, transportation, and the nuts and bolts, or basically bureaucratic stuff such as pensions, HR, IT, etc.
basically bringing in all those different requests and trying to use data to explain and compete them to distill that down to an easy to understand report that everybody should be able to understand, not just the elected officials, but public, and increasing transparency has kind of always been my goal, using data to inform decision makers as to here are all the competing requests, here's the available resources, how can we, where do we get the most bang for our buck to meet the most critical needs for the county in this case, and competing against the departments. And a way that we can do that is by using performance measures and other tools like that.
We'll go to Jason Gibson for the same question. What skills do you bring to enhance working with all the county departments on their budgets?
Well, I bring 11 years of experience already doing that job. I've been the budget analyst. Part of our job is budget and accounting. So for half the year, starting in approximately June, we start our budget development process. We roll our budgets. We start work sessions with all the departments and all the elected officials. We come together with them. We have open conversations. We find out what their needs are. We also tell them what our available resources are. Part of my job at the county is developing the projections for our revenue. So I'm the one that analyzes our sales taxes, property taxes, makes those estimates, put those in the budget to show what our available resources are. Then we have the budget work sessions with the commission. We turn all these budgets in, we aggregate them, we present the budgets to the commission, and we tell them what the priorities for each of the elected officials are.
We have questions from the audience, and so we'll go to the first question from the audience for these two candidates, and we'll start with Jason Gibson on this. And it's a two-parter. It's kind of like what you would be asked in a job interview. What would you say is your greatest strength and greatest weakness?
I would say my greatest strength is working with others. Part of what I also do out in the community, I'm a coach. I coach young youth volleyball, and I coach high school as well at Rockbridge. I love working with people. I love working with very diverse people. I'm very good at opening up conversations, understanding different points of view. That would be my greatest strength. My greatest weakness. Probably I'm very, I guess you would say, meticulous about not only rules, but just about processes. Sometimes I get caught up in too many of the details, maybe in the numbers, but working with others, I've come to just that, because I know most people don't like to get caught up too much in the details.
Okay, we'll go to Kyle Riemann on the same question. Your greatest strength and your greatest weakness.
I would say my greatest strength is cultivating a team through leadership and teaching them to basically running a self-sustained office. That's a lot of what I've done, and would come in a lot of times with my experience at the state to look at these different divisions within different departments, understand what's going on, and then basically figure out ways to understand everyone's individual role, get them all to kind of communicate better, and kind of weed out some inefficiencies. My greatest weakness, I'm going to say two. One is I'm terrible at spelling. So without spell check, I would be lost, just to be honest. And then two, I'm not the best public speaker, as I'm sure you can figure out, because I'm a little candid with my conversation.
Funny you should bring that up, because one of the questions that I thought about asking, I'll go ahead and ask it now. And we'll start with you. You can follow up on this. On a scale of 1 to 10, how painful is speaking in public and running for office, this part of the campaign?
Is there an 11? It is not. I'm much more comfortable if I could show you how to build a spreadsheet.
I was going to say auditors and accountants and things like that. This is not something that generally they are comfortable with. 1 to 10, I'll go ahead and ask Jason Gibson too.
I would say it is pretty difficult. We're more used to working with smaller groups. more intimate settings, getting out in public. That's really not what accountants and auditors do. We're more of numbers people, but we have to adjust. We have to be able to work well with others and be able to compromise and work collaboratively. So,
Well, we appreciate you doing that here tonight. This question is one about running for this position of auditor for a county as a member of a political party. So I'll ask, and we'll start with Jason Gibson here. Why run as a Republican? What does it mean to be the Republican Boone County Auditor?
well, if I'd had a choice, I would not have run as a political party at all. Unfortunately, the state statute says that we have to run as a party. I prayed for many days and deliberated for a long time on what to run as, but for my family values, we are more affiliated maybe with Republican side. I also thought that running as a Republican, I would feel less pressured. Right now we have an all Democratic county. So I felt like running as a Republican, I would feel less pressure to have to do things a certain way or maybe push certain things through the budget.
Of course, I'll have to rephrase the question for Kyle Riemann, but you're the Democratic candidate. What would it mean to be the Democratic Boone County Auditor?
Well, I can echo Jason in saying that, this is a position that I think is fairly nonpartisan. My entire career has been nonpartisan up to this point. And I've worked with both sides of the aisle in Jeff City. Have great relationships both sides of the aisle, plan to continue those connections. And from my perspective, with maybe some of the radicalization of the other party, I feel much more in line with my personal views with the Democratic Party.
I'll follow up to this and we'll start with Kyle Riemann on this. When people get their ballot, even for a position like county auditor or treasurer or recorder of deeds, how much do you think that what is happening nationally or statewide impacts their opinion of someone whose name is listed as Democratic candidate? And of course, for Jason, I'll be saying Republican candidate. Because I think there's an impact there.
Sure. Well, I am running for auditor and not political scientist, but I do think that there is a lot of correlation. There's a lot of data on that in terms of, whether it's name ID, street party tickets. It also depends on what, I assume you're wanting to tailor it to our system and not other states, but yeah, I think there's a lot of correlation with party.
Jason Gibson, same question for you. When people look at the ballot, they may not know anything about the candidates and they'll know something about political parties. So how do you address that in your saying, get beyond it? Or do you want to get beyond it?
So when I'm out talking to people, I have this issue, especially in the city area. There are many people that are more Democratic leaning in the city. I try to make them understand that for the county auditor's position, and especially most of local county positions, there really should not be partisanship. The county auditor's position is a professional position. You need to be a professional accountant to be in that position. It takes education, training, experience, and that they need to look past the politics. And we need to look past the politics in all of our county races. We need to get the best individuals, the most competent individuals in the offices. And that's what people need to understand. I think I put that on my website. I put it out as much as possible. If you look at my website, you can see that I actually have testimonies from Democratic leaders in the community. June Pitchford, Janet Thompson, Christy Blakemore. I'll be receiving one from the sheriff's office. So people need to understand that it's not a political position, and that's what I try to put across to people.
This is kind of a follow-up question from one of our audience members, and we'll start with Jason Gibson on this one. Elaborate on the performance measures to determine what budget requests are approved.
So in our budget book, we do have some performance measures. You look at the recorder's office, it's the number of deeds recorded. You look at the treasurer's office, the number of receipts. You look at our office, it's the number of accounts payable that we've processed. And then you look at the purchasing office, the number of contracts they've done. So all these are performance measures, but that's only one piece of the puzzle. Performance measures are important, but you also have to look at the people. And it's really the people that we have to focus on, because we can't have good performance measures without good people. And I think we've talked about this already. Performance measures are important, but we have to have good employees at the county, and we're having problems retaining those employees. You know, we need to look past the numbers and look at the people.
Kyle Reman, same question to you. Elaborate on performance measures you would use to determine what budget request would be approved.
And we need more time. I'm big on performance measures, worked on them a lot at the state as they kind of move to a performance-based budgeting as a secondary method, and then also at the city. There's a lot of performance measures out there that are not really great. They should be, they should be telling you a story to make an informed decision. And we need to really do a better job of finding the information and collecting the data on a consistent basis to help the predictability of whenever we're saying, oh, hey, we're wanting to fund this new decision item to do X, that we can then go back and see if we were right or wrong and know why we were right or wrong if that doesn't happen. Because the whole point of performance measures is to help track performance and improve it so we can get more control over how we're allocating our resources.
We're going to be running short on time. I apologize that we probably won't be able to get to all of the questions, but I think we do have time for this one. Kyle Reman, we start with you. Why did you file for this office? And they also want to know when you decided to file.
I filed for this office on the last day possible, just to get that up front. And I did so because from a young age, I've always wanted things to be done right. And that's always been kind of the main drive for me in wanting to work in public policy, is to just want to do things right. And I feel like this is a great position to be able to help instill that and make that change and do things right within the county.
Jason Gibson, same question to you. You were appointed to this position and you decided to file. When and why? I'm sorry, but no. Jason, I strike that last comment.
Yes, I was hired into the auditor's office in 2011.
You were.
I wasn't appointed. I had to actually interview for that. So I just, June decided, or she made her announcement in September of last year that she was going to retire. And at the time it was just me and another senior accountant in the office that were really, in my opinion, qualified to do that office. That other senior accountant is now retired as well. I deliberated for a long time and prayed for a long time. I didn't file on the first day. I think it took 2 or 3 days because I was just so uncertain whether I was ready to serve at this high of a level. But then after thinking about it, I've invested a lot of time in that office, and June has been a great steward of the people for her 32 years. And she's passed on that institutional knowledge to me. And I'm the only one that has much of that institutional knowledge, yes, left. Most of our processes and things cannot be found in a book. They're up here. And I knew if I didn't file and didn't run for the office that we may lose that institutional knowledge.
It's time for our closing comments, and so we'll go in reverse order than we did at the opening comments. So that means that to Kyle Reman, you have a minute to finish your comments for us tonight.
Thank you. Well, to talk about the most recent issue, so if you want to go through, again, my whole life career has been focused on trying to understand how bureaucracies evolve and how they affect the lives of everybody, everyday people. And as you transition from a smaller charisma-based organization, which is kind of where we're coming from, you have to institutionalize it and move it. Otherwise, the policies and everything are held within the individuals in the workforce and not through the system and the institution. And that is a lot of a transition that we're going through because we've had so many people that have put in a lot of great systems and built the foundation of our county. But now we have to find a way to bring all that in with policies, analyze it, figure out what's working, what's not, and that is the task that I want to do.
And Jason Gibson, your final comments for us tonight.
So my final comment is going to be focused on what it takes to be in this office. The statute says that the person that is going to be the county auditor shall be a person familiar with the theory and practice of accounting through education, experience, and training, and be able to perform the functions of the county auditor. Well, the education part and the accounting part is the key to those. I have, part of my education, I went back to school in 2006. I did 33 credit hours in accounting on top of what I had in my Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. Understanding the accounting part is the most technical part of this position and why it is written in the statute. I feel like I'm the only candidate that has those qualifications for this position. And it is imperative that we have a educated and experienced accountant in the office because we are in charge of preparing the financial statements, the single audit, and preparing the audit work papers. The risk to the county is that if we don't have an accountant, we will incur higher costs. Our bond ratings can go up. There's tons of issues that if we don't have a educated accountant, that we won't have a smooth transition. And so I ask for your vote in November.
Jason Gibson, Kyle Reeman, thank you both for being candidate for Boone County Auditor. So if you'll hold on for just a second, just let me say this concludes our candidate forum. Again, we'll have another one a week from tonight. And the League of Women Voters wants to give its thanks to the audience, both here and on Zoom, and listening on the radio stations tonight of KFRU and KOPN. Also, thanks to Lauren Williams and the tech crew here at the library. We do have, as I mentioned at the beginning, the voters guide for general election and Boone County contested races, ballot issues information, and information on judges. You can see that at the website for the League of Women Voters. It's lwvcbc.org. State Representative Candidate Forum at 6:30 a week from tonight. We hope that you are here. We encourage you to vote on November 8th. Thank you and have a good evening.